I know that some of you are here interested in particular topics, so I tried to have somebody here to address those topics for you. With that being said, at this point I'd like to introduce Mayor Gillich, and following Mayor Gillich will be Christy Labata, who is the city engineer, and then we'll hear from Mr. Jerry Creel on community development. Ms. Labata will also cover public works and engineering on your agenda. And then we have Mr. Walt Rohde to my right on the end. He's here just to give you a brief update on the FEMA infrastructure projects, the work that's being done in Ward 5. That's along Highway 90 at this time. And then we have the police department. Chief Miller, I don't know if he's ever missed a ward meeting that I've had, but he's missing tonight's meeting. So we have Thomas Goldworthy and Granver Everett, and they'll talk about speeding in neighborhoods. The Citizens Police Academy is interesting. If you've not heard of it, you might find that informative. You might be interested in cruising the coast traffic plans. I don't know. Oh, I do see the city attorney back here. Raise your hand so we'll know where to throw things. Mr. Peter Abide. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I have an agenda here to follow.
My best. Thank you, and it's a good crowd. And you know, I've got a few topics in mind, but don't hesitate to stop me and say what's on your mind, because I talk fast, and had a couple of coffees already today. So, but you know, I think the biggest project that we undertook in the last couple of years with regard to this out here is the extension of Pops Ferry, you know, across the Highway 90, and making that major thoroughfare a state road. That means possibly we can get a new bridge at some point in time. But that's moving right along. Chrissy, she needs to be on my left-hand shoulder here, but I think it's about $20 million worth of project that's left, just a few pieces of property, but I think we're in the last throes of approval, both from CSX, and I think that's the biggest challenge, some of the things that happened there. But it's an amazing project that will, I think, benefit, you know, the city and especially out here. Rouse's, I think, was a direct result. Some of the things that are going to happen with Keesler Federal are pretty important. So, any questions on where we are? That I think it'll probably, once we break the ground and award the bid, we're hopeful September, but we're running out of September to bid this project. Is that pretty much right? Okay. So. I think we have the funding in place, and some of the Coliseum expenses that were asked to be added, you know, exits and underpasses to tie the parking lots that this road will split will be good. Any questions on extension? Okay. Goose Point, the westbound lane, I think we're undertaking some. Christy, I think you need to help me on some of this stuff. But in Pops Ferry Bridge, we do have, hopefully, a number of millions of dollars to keep it from breaking down. I think the other day we had to use a crowbar to force it to lock in. That's a major issue. Again, 1970s, I think it's a flavor of when it was built, and those technologies almost like things start leaking like in a brake fluid in a car, and it's pretty much close to the situation. So with about $15 million, we'll keep that thing from breaking, at least closing and opening, you know. So, and again, from there, we're hopefully in the middle of looking at what we need to do to keep that surface, that traffic flowing, and not as many bumps as you know, between where it's going to be 4-laned or right south of or right north of the pass road. But that's a big part of our project, to keep that surface moving at least without really harming your car. Water lines, you know, in Edgewater, and where else we got? Bay Vista, and
they're next in the queue after we get these projects out to bid.
Right. So.
Any idea about how long that might be?
Their next round of funding, as soon as we can get Tanglewood, we'll start looking at water sewer funds.
There's an allocation on an annual basis for the next 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll roll that out. You know, there's nothing less than $1 million except maybe pickleball. We're a little bit less than $1 million we're spending on pickleball. But we delivered a couple of things there, so yeah. I think pickleball is pretty popular right here in this building, right? Big time. Yeah. So the water lines, I said, we're working at as fast and as hard as we can. You know, we developed the West Biloxi master plan that everything that wasn't touched with the Katrina infrastructure project will be included in this, or is included in this. We paid a pretty good chunk of engineering and the design to get it where we are. And with, you know, as I said, with the funding and with, you know, piece by piece, we'll put it together. But of course, West Biloxi is now the oldest of the infrastructure. It's below the deck and you know, on the surface and storm drains. So that's a big part of you know, of our plan. But it's ongoing, and we'll push as hard as we can. Questions on that? Y'all are easy so far. Yeah.
Is there ongoing litigation with this tugboat company that ruined the draw span, distorted it?
Peter? Yes.
That's also.
Yeah. We got a few dollars for that, right?
Whatever the repair cost.
We passed that.
Repair cost of the bridge was covered.
Right. Yeah.
I live in Bridgewater Estate, and our water lines are falling apart. We have full water notices already.
Yeah.
If you have redo, and that has to be
Yeah.
replaced.
I have no idea exactly. I can't put a date and month, but again, that's part of the master plan, and everything has an age and it's sort of a priority, if you will. Not, you know, you got to pick the points. Christy, I don't know where we are with that.
Yeah, so we're going to look to start funding the design of these hopefully next year. As the mayor said, we're starting to kick off our West Biloxi repairs now that everything else has kind of been handled with infrastructure. And the Edgewater Estates and the Bay Vista are the first two projects that we fund design for. It really just depends on how much funding is there for construction in future years, but later on next year, the year after. We'll determine when we go to construction. I don't know which one has had more, but I know that we've had a lot in both of them. In Bay Vista, they're constantly having full water notices there as well.
Okay. Any other questions on infrastructure? Walter kind of covered some other things, but yeah, I guess some ordinances on spring break. We're looking for special events ordinances on the table and trying to iron out what's, I guess, reasonable for all these special events. Yeah.
Could you speak better into the mic?
Yes, ma'am. I could hear that now, right? I'm sorry. I usually talk loud and fast, but no. Yeah, I think that. Okay. But those special events ordinance are heavy on our mind, and it has to cover all the different things that we address. You know, and it does cost hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, you know, with our PD and scheduling. And it's sort of complex, but we're trying to do. Our legal folks are trying to put everything that's together. And I know Cruising the Coast had some concerns about RVs parking on property and you know, timing of all this stuff. But it's a challenge, but we'll meet those challenges. Okay, you know, I think unless there's anything specific on that, I'm done. Thank you.
Peter, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about about the special events ordinances. They're rather extensive. I guess my question would be, do you know when those will be coming to the council for action, a first reading? Tuesday. Okay, so that's a good thing. Tuesday the 19th, that'll be a first reading only. That's procedural. And then the following council meeting. No, we already did the first reading. We've had 3 workshops. So, all right, so we'll be voting on this, hopefully.
Right, and I will say, if you are in favor of controlling these events, come to the meeting and say that you support. A lot of times, only people we hear from are the people that want to have the events. And it sometimes seems like there's a lot of people in favor of having big
Okay, and as soon as the council agenda is online, which will be sometime Thursday afternoon, I'll put links to what's proposed on those ordinances. There's a cluster, like 4 or 5 ordinances that are affected. I'll have that on my website if you want to go there and look at it, and you'll be able to see what we see as council members. Any other questions about water lines in Edgewater Estates or Bay Vista? Just to clarify, what I heard was hopefully some money for design here in this next year, 2024, and that, did I hear those 2 projects, Bay Vista and Edgewater Estates, did I hear they were at the top of the list? The top of the list. I have witnesses. Okay. All right. Job opportunities with the city of Biloxi, I'd just say currently I think about 1 out of every 8 positions in the city is vacant. We'd love to have more applicants. We'd love to have more employees. But when you look at summertime and when it rains, it hadn't rained much, but with all the grass that has to be mowed, if you're wondering why hadn't the grass been mowed across the street from me, they get to it eventually, but not as quickly as any of us would like, I think. Also, we're looking for sworn police officers. Is that right? Absolutely. My guess is we could hire another 15 tomorrow. So if you know anybody who's a sworn law enforcement officer and would love to work for the city of Biloxi, we're hiring. Okay, that being said, Christy, if you don't.
Let me mention one thing. Christy did something. We have a pretty exciting event coming up. I think this is the first international visitor. The president of Croatia will be here on the 22nd. We had an opportunity about a year and a half ago to have the ambassador from the Republic of Croatia. We must have made an impression. So about a month ago, he said, "Man, we have a proposal for you to consider." And the president of Croatia and his whole, all the top 6 of his ministers will be in New York on the 19th, actually the 19th through the 21st, and at the United Nations General Assembly. And so next week, I think we talked about the PD and Secret Service and Croatian Service. We just had a security visit yesterday, and it's going to be an exciting time. So we'll be good. The president of Croatia will be visiting us on the 22nd at 10:30 at City Hall. So I think that'd be a pretty newsworthy. I'm, not here because I'm a little bit Croatian. Like 100%. So thank you.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about some other projects that y'all have going on in your ward. The next big thing that we have that's going to go out to bid is replacing the Bay Vista water well, which is just right across the street here behind the fire station. That water well's been out of service for quite some time, so that will help with your water pressure in this area. I know that you need water lines replaced too, but we've got those in the works. But we've got a grant. We're working on getting that out to bid very soon. Spratley Avenue. Anybody in here live on Spratley? Do I have any Spratley people here? That paving should be done either this week or next week. I meant to drive by there on the way here, and I forgot, but that's almost done. We went in and made some storm drain repairs. They had basically a huge pothole covering the whole entire width of the street. So that's going to be done soon, as well as Bay Vista. We had a manhole that had issues there, same thing. That's done. We'll be making the asphalt repairs to that shortly. And then Churchill Ditch. Does anybody here live on Churchill Ditch or know? So we've got we have a project right now that we're studying that ditch. We know that it's got a lot of issues. It's starting to erode on one side, fences on one side are starting to fall in. So we're looking at some options on how, because a lot of water goes through there. So it's not just an easy pipe it. So we're looking at some options on how we can make those repairs. We've got a consultant on board now and expect to get a report from them any day about how to proceed in a project to kind of clean that up and make it function a little bit better for the neighbors. That's all I have on my list. Yes. Oh, yes, Sweet Pennzoil. Oh, yes.
First of all, I'd like to say welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm president of the Enclave Homeowners Association, as you know, and I'm sure that you, Councilman Tisdale, and especially Mike Leonard, thank you all for keeping the ditch maintained. It's been an issue for years, and I think the city's doing a great job.
Thank Thank you. Thank you. Speaking of, Dr. Tisdale brought up Pennzoil Park. We actually have a water fountain. It is here. It is going to be picked up. We thought it was going to be picked up last week by our contractor. He didn't pick it up yet. But you will very soon see a water fountain with a little dog spigot in Pennzoil Park. So just so you know, be looking for it. Is that you? Yay. Vincent, I'm sure Vincent Curl will be happy too. Yeah. So I normally stay for the meeting. I've got to run out today after this. So does anybody have any other questions or need any information on anything going on?
Yeah, get
No?
back to pay this.
Yeah.
I've looked at both phases of pay this.
Mm-hmm.
Over on Orleans Road, that's phase 2. Currently on Old Bay Road, which is phase 1. I think my house was the second one built in the subdivision. Not all the water lines are built from that transite.
Right.
Justice pipe.
Right.
My main is steel.
Yeah.
I mean, that needs to be, I mean, you can kick the can down the road as far as my street's concerned. Where my old house is at, Orleans and Meadows and all that, it needs it done.
And that's where, yeah, we've looked and pulled out the areas that have transite, and we're focusing on those first, because that's where all the issues are, where we're getting the most bull water notices. Yes, ma'am? Well, it depends. We have a traffic committee that that a couple of the directors sit on. What issue are you having?
Well, you know, like at Big Lake Road, there's a walk, like a walk, don't walk sign.
Mm-hmm.
But then down at where Waterkeys is, there's no walk.
Yeah.
There, that's a much busier intersection.
Yes. There will be one put in when we do our Potts Ferry Extension project. They're going to put pedestrian controls there. So you'll see that.
I think it's about $2 million of upgrade that.
Of just that intersection, yeah. Yeah, so you'll see once, I mean, that project is going to take a while to finish because it's a big project, but there'll be one when it's done. Yes, ma'am?
Corner of Nelson Road and Pass Road, it's a very, very small area.
Yeah.
You get up to it, you make any kind of turn, whether you're coming off of Nelson or turn onto Nelson. I mentioned it before, I know it isn't before, I'm sorry. And also, there used to be a turn on right, and a turn around left side, it's not there anymore.
Okay.
But they're still continuing to go past where you're supposed to be able to trigger the light.
Okay.
And school buses do go in and out of there too.
Yeah, yeah, okay. We can take a look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. If there's no more questions, I think did you have a question? No? Okay. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. If you did not catch her name, that's Christy Labata, good French name. She's over the city's engineering department. And Christy's been with the city now for 3 years.
About 21 years. Yeah.
About 117 headaches worth, huh? Okay, thank you. She is. All right, next I'll introduce Jerry Creel, and he's going to share any information he has on the community college's private road. There was a phase 1 and a phase 2, I think, in their comprehensive plan or long-term plan. And then from the community college, we have Lee Palermo, who's an architect with the community college, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And then Jerry's going to cover a couple of other topics. Jerry is the Director of Community Development, which also oversees code enforcement, that kind of stuff. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Okay. We have a number of things going on, and I'm going to go through a list of them after we get through talking about it. But as far as the Mississippi Community College entrance road, phase 1 has been designed. We're basically waiting on them. The only thing that was holding them up is that they placed a check into our mitigation bank for some trees that are going to be removed there. The city council just voted this week to accept that check, so now they can move forward with construction as soon as their timetable makes it. But as far as phase 2, I'm informed that there is no update on that. They really don't have any plans for anything right now, and I can tell you that they have not submitted anything to us right now. So that's whatever will happen there will be announced in the future, but there's nothing to report right now. Sure. You want to come up, Mr. Palermo? Yeah. Okay.
Lee Palermo is the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College architect. There you go.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. I'll field any questions you guys have. But like he said, we have a master plan that we develop every 20 years. In that master plan, it shows an extension of that road, and right now it's not even thought about. It's not even part of the plan right now. As most master plans are developed, sometimes things come to fruition, sometimes they don't. It just all depends on where things progress. Sure.
Terry Bounds is my name.
Yeah.
Why, if there was a phase one developed, why, it seemed like phase two would have to be followed in concert.
I mean, if you're going to,
Why have a phase one if you're not going to have a phase two?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I've only been with the college for 3 years, but I can tell you that when you develop a master plan, you do phase things in, and that is a phase. At some point, maybe that will come to fruition, but right now, it's not warranted.
This is my thought. We don't have athletics, we don't have dormitories in JD. I've lived here since '86, and I grew up in this area. But the traffic here is probably 2/3 or at best or half of what it used to be. I just don't understand how we have to spend so much tax money on connecting different places where what we have is working perfectly fine. It seems like we're spending a lot of money that we don't need to spend, we could use in other areas.
Yeah. I mean, I see your point, but this is a.
The new apartments on the new Switzer Road, they're built almost right on the road on both sides. And if we make a road through there, I guess this is part of phase two, but if a road is put through there, it's going to be dangerous for people that live there. It's going to be extremely cramped. It's going to be convenient for people that live in Shamrock and Edgewater Cove.
Right, and my answer to that is there is no phase two right now.
Okay. Which, I'm sorry, makes no sense.
Hey, Lee.
Yes.
Terry Collins. I have a question for you. When they come up with phase one and phase two in this master plan, have they looked at what the attendance, the on-campus attendance in the university? Because I feel like the attendance, especially college in general, are going down, especially on campus, because all these people now are doing stuff online for the past several years. I just want to know their projections as these roads are actually necessary for traffic, because I don't think the attendance record on campus attendance is going to hold up if we need to spend all this money and all this infrastructure and all this tearing up people's lives, in the way they do it.
Yeah, I don't think the intent is to tear up anyone's lives. We're a community college, and we work for the community.
Attendance is not the roads, the construction, the lights on Pottsbury Road, on Pass Road now that you have to attend to now, which is going to cause more traffic congestion. As Terry said, I've lived back here since 1977. Okay, actually, it's even before 1974. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I could have said you probably got an argument because of the Beach Road, Pass Road. You may have had to wait 1 or 2 lights. If you ever lived in a big city, that's common. You have to wait 1 or 2 lights before you have to go. And that only happens, on very certain days. But that was over 5 years ago. I contend now that I bet you somebody has class to get out, that they don't have to wait for maybe 1 or 2 lights to get through the Beach Road along the way wherever they go, especially now that they got running needs going out the other way. So I just don't think it's even justified even spending money on that road to begin with. I know it's done. I know the college system is very well endowed into the city and the county. And trust me, whatever they want, they won't get. Okay, but I just want to say that I'm totally against spending the money on something that I feel like is totally unnecessary.
Thanks for your opinion.
Also, to reinforce what he's talking about, if anybody did a comprehensive study with the students on there, you relabeled as junior college, Harrison County. So we're talking about basically in the past, Iowa, Biloxi. The way I see it, this avenue is going to be used by mostly the Iowaville and Biloxi people. The majority of the golf course students are going north on Switzer Road. Maybe your Long Beach and Pass people will go down to these, but I don't see it justifying
again, this was part of a master plan.
They did it, just a
Yeah.
sample and see where everybody lived at, get a general idea.
Sure, sure. And I think Damon Torselli with the Neil Schaefer, our design group, they did extensive studies on traffic studies and that nature before we designed this thing to make sure it's not going to impact the community the way people are feeling it will.
Well, I know for 30 years plus, the college, the money that the Beach Road section vacates. Because I know people who were on the school board 30 years ago. Back then, they wanted that part of the Beach Road vacated. And that's a fight they've been fighting for 30-some years now. And now that they've got the money to spend, now they're going to have their way. And I just don't think it's justified to spend the money. For the people, especially for the people who live back in that area, it's going to be huge. I don't think it was the students do better either.
Yes, sir.
Do you have the authority to change the master plan?
Do I have the authority to change? I have input on the master plan, yes.
To what degree?
To what degree? I make recommendations to the college board that, you know, this is a good decision to do this. This is whether it's good or bad, and I help, you know, with help from outside engineers and architects. We sit together and we put together this master plan. I have not personally been involved in the establishment of one of these, as it was established before my tenure. I've only been with the college for 3 years, and it was done 10 years ago. But yeah, the next phase, I'll be involved with it if I'm still with the college.
I'm curious, how many trees did we remove and what was the mitigation cost? And were any of them live others?
I'll let Jerry attest to that.
Okay. The mitigation cost,
I think it was 16.8 or 16.2.
it was $16,800. That's the check that they wrote to the city.
How many trees?
There were 21, I believe, 21 that are going to be removed as a result. They're not removing any more than they have to. And, you know, just to talk about this a little bit more, the community college, you know, is a great asset to all the cities down here. They don't have any exposure on Pass Road. And, you know, the community college just finished a really nice entrance over off of Highway 49. One of the things about this road is that we know that it will be well maintained. And I know one of the concerns, it'll be landscaped, there'll be a nice sign up on Pass Road. And I know that one of the concerns is, well, you know, what's going to happen to the property on the sides? Is it going to develop commercial or something like that? All of that property is zoned single-family residential, and any attempt to rezone it to commercial would have to go to the Planning Commission and to the City Council for approval. So citizens would have input into that if something commercial tried to go in there. Okay. The only thing that I've seen as far as that goes back in there is that there has been a proposal come to the Development Review Committee about adding 20 more single-family lots back in there on the golf course, single-family houses. We haven't seen anything in the way of commercial. So. Not yet, no ma'am. Mm-mm. Yeah, the way that this road is designed is that it would come up to Eula and there would be a roundabout there. And you'd go around the roundabout to go into Eula to go over to the campus. And the access for the 20 lots is not at the roundabout. It's back further south than that would go over to the eastern side of the new road. Yeah, I live on St. Peter. We have the same problem getting out on the Highway 90. Sometimes you just have to sit there and wait until there's a vacant spot in it. But there will be a traffic signal at the exit off of the college campus coming onto Pass Road. There'll be a traffic signal there that will certainly slow traffic down, that would probably give you more access to get out onto Pass Road. Yes, sir.
It'll just back traffic up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just had a quick question, just for clarity.
No,
It's not?
no, it's the college on all of it.
Okay, so this is college with phase one. So phase one is already pretty much about to be construction, correct?
That's correct.
One question on phase one. So the traffic light at B's is probably, I don't know the exact number, probably 300 feet from the future construction of that one. Are those going to be interlocked with each other? So we're not, if I'm just passing through, I'm not having to go through, okay, red light, okay, wait a minute, and then get stuck at the B's again. I already know traffic's kind of, that's going to cause some issues, I'm sure. I don't understand how that's not going to cause a traffic congestion, having two traffic lights 300 feet from each other right there, and then you've got Eisenhower on the other side.
They had the ability to be synchronized.
Okay.
Yes.
My second question is, so for phase two, that's just simply, again, just for clarification, as you said, that's literally just an image on the master plan.
That's it.
Just an idea of
So,
a future proposal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Me? I run the community development department for the city.
I had one question. I was here at the meeting when they proposed the houses on Beulah, and at that time, I thought, it was my understanding that those were to be sold, not leased.
Mm-hmm.
And now, all of a sudden, they are leased. But the master plan that, in fact, I got a copy of it from the meeting, we were told that they were going to be sold.
Well, each of,
Family, you know,
okay. Each of those lots were subdivided into individual townhome lots. They can be sold, but what,
they never mentioned anything about it being a lease.
but what's happened though is that naturally any developer is going to do whatever the demand calls for.
But is that a different zoning to
No.
have leased property?
No.
Because those are in essence
No.
apartments.
That property's on residential multifamily, and it would allow either rental property or sale
Don't
property.
you think they should have been upfront that that was not going to be, you know? I mean, we were told one thing, and then all of a sudden, leasing signs are all over the place.
Yes, ma'am.
And that road is awfully narrow, and people are parking on the street there. So when that road gets cut through, how in the world is traffic? You're going to have
be one lane.
traffic going in and out of the road.
If there are people parked,
Anybody look, I mean, I live in Channel Mark, so I pass that every day going in and out. And by the way, I have never, ever, ever, in 6 years I've lived here, I've never had a problem with events. I've never had a problem with any traffic there. I've never had a problem getting in and out of there. So I don't know what the street is for, but that Beulah is so narrow. I just don't understand how that's going to be a main street kind of in.
and it may warrant improving that road at some point, widening it in there, but, okay. 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 To answer, okay. Yeah, okay. It's possible, yes. Okay. But to answer your first question, when someone comes in with a development and they subdivide a piece of property, we can't say, you've got to either rent it or you've got to either sell it. I mean, we don't have any control over that. If it meets all the zoning requirements, then what we do is take it through the proper steps with the planning commission and the city council. No, the property is owned residential multifamily, which allows apartments. That's the zoning. No, because you're probably.
If we were told ahead of time that it was going to be zoned like that, then maybe we would have some input or say so on that.
It was all.
Assuming they're like townhomes individually, someone's been purchased.
Yeah.
Had no idea that it was set up exactly like a apartment type complex, multi-family.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would have been happy with that if we were notified up front about that. That should be clarified anytime if there's a plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, at any time you can say it's going to be something, oh, yeah, it's going to be this, and then all of a sudden it's not.
Like, this is not going to be phase 2 now, but whoops, yes again.
So when these developments, first appear on the city's radars through the Development Review Committee, and the developer has to meet all the city's rules, regs, and all that other good stuff. And then if there's a zone change required or a conditional use required, and there may be some other circumstances, this goes before the City Planning Commission. Okay? You have an opportunity for a public hearing. I'm sitting here, when this first came up, there was a buzz, and I know some of you went to that Planning Commission meeting, but some of you did not. I just want to point out, by the time it goes through the city's Planning Commission, you have an opportunity to be heard there. And then if it's a conditional use or rezoning, then it comes to council for action. Not everything that the Planning Commission hears comes before the City Council. So if it does leave the Planning Commission, it comes to us as a recommendation. And at that council meeting, you have another opportunity to be heard. So the reason I want to point this out, I'm thinking, because I didn't vote for the road. I didn't vote for the road. Everybody else did. I did not, because I represent you. Okay? But I'm thinking these are wonderful points. They're just coming about 6 months too late. So when you go to the Planning Commission, you can speak. They give you several minutes, but you have an opportunity to be heard and on the record. You should take advantage of that opportunity. Just one at a time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right.
When was the next meeting that we would have known that was going to change?
Let me address that, Michelle. Okay.
We would have been happy to attend that meeting, but I don't remember that being advertised because it seemed to have been agreed upon at that meeting. I mean,
Well,
I have the plan.
yeah. One of the things about property, and this is happening all over the city right now, is that those units may have been sold, and then the new owner turned around and decided to rent them to students or individual renters, because like I say, we have a lot of people moving here from other states right now. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay. There are people buying houses in Biloxi right now, almost sight unseen, and fixing them up. So it's just part of business. That's the way that they do it. All right. The second thing I had on my
Question in the very beginning.
okay.
I only went to Channel for about 2.5 years, and like when you find a great community, you don't want to kick the door closed behind you. I love how beautiful the campus is at MGCCC, and I only came to this meeting to get more clarification on this. But like in phase 2, you're saying that the road that comes back to Channel Mark is zoned single-family residential, and now we're finding out that the ones before were going to be sold as townhouses. So what's to keep that from being more apartments there? I don't want apartments there.
No, we don't.
Well,
I live in single-family homes in a beautiful community, and I don't want it. I don't want apartments.
well, again,
I don't know what they do.
the property that you're talking about is zoned single-family residential, meaning that they could only build single-family residential homes there. If someone comes in,
But now we have rows of apartments that are going to connect by a road right into our neighborhood.
if someone comes in and wants to change that zoning to multifamily residential, that would allow townhomes or apartments, they would have to go through the Planning Commission for a public hearing and then go to the City Council for final approval on that. So it's not just going to happen overnight. There'd be advertisements put out.
We were already
Okay.
6
Okay.
months too late now, so now we're 6 months early. But we know now that we have to be at all these meetings. That's the takeaway, I guess.
Yes, sir. In the back.
Just clarify, make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. When she's talking about phase 2, we're talking about the new road possibly being developed at some point in time in the future, correct? Are you telling me that that's going to be zoned single family? Because that's school property.
The property I'm talking about,
That
that,
could be sold to a developer and they could put houses on what we always thought was school property?
well, Well, if it's the school property, the school would make that decision about what to do. But if it's property that's under the city's oversight, that is actually in the city of Biloxi, then any development on there would have to comply with the city regulations about zoning and setbacks and those kind of things.
Okay, so, but this potential pathway to Channelmark, the entryway right there, that's on school property, so y'all could possibly sometime in the future say, hey, look, we don't need this block of land, we're gonna sell it to a developer. That's a possibility?
And if the school decided to sell that property to a developer, then the property that's sold to us would take on the zoning of what's on either side, which is single-family residential.
If it's owned by the college, how is it zoned single family? I don't get it, I'm sorry.
The property's on the side. Correct me if I'm wrong, Damon. The school only owns the property where the road would go. Okay.
So could you put dorm rooms out there?
The school only owns the property where the road would go, not the property to the sides of where the road would go.
Yeah, I'm talking about the northern part.
That's what I'm talking, yes, sir.
That's not Cotton Forest land, that's the school land.
No, we own all that.
You do own it? Okay. Y'all? Okay. Okay. Okay, one at a time, please. One at a time. Okay.
What's going to happen with the wildlife in these woods? Because there's deer out there.
Okay. Well, wetlands have to be mitigated. There are procedures for mitigating wetlands. You don't just go in and clear wetlands. But I have been corrected. The college does own that land that's back there. Yeah. Well, please, one at a time, please, one at a time.
Has there been an environmental impact study and a study done in what it's going to do to displace all the wildlife there?
Well, again, nothing has been presented to us for phase 2. We have nothing on phase 2.
There is no phase 2.
Okay.
But please, just one at a time. We want everybody to be heard. I want you to have all your questions answered before you leave. They can answer your questions. I can't. That's why I have them here.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have a question, raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being here in a very difficult environment. But I have a very simple question, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But if a road's coming off the pass to connect to Eula for ingress and egress from the college, why would it be necessary to put in a roundabout unless it was already presupposed that there's going to be other roads attached to it?
Well, there is other land there that there may be some other uses that the school decides to put there that would tie into the roundabout. Yeah, so we'll know that when something is presented to us, but right now nothing's been presented to us. So, okay, moving along to the next question that I had was about Rouse's Supermarket and the status of Rouse's. You know, Rouse's has leased a spot in the former Winn-Dixie location on Pass Road, and everybody's been anticipating, you know, wanting to know when's that going to happen. They have submitted the plans to us for all the renovations on the inside. We've reviewed that set of plans. The review is complete. We're basically waiting on them. They were supposed to pull the permit to start last month, but there was a confusing statement in the contract with their contractor that they had to go back and clear up, but they're supposed to come pull the permit for the Rouses in the next 2 weeks. So they'll get started on it. It's going to be a really good project, and it's going to provide something that I think everybody will be excited about.
Please, everybody can't hear because of the side conversations.
Okay.
So if everybody could, if you want to talk after the meeting. I'll stick around if you have questions. But let Mr. Creel finish first, and then we'll come back to your question.
Okay. All right. Right now, from an economic development standpoint, the city of Biloxi is doing really very well. We have a number of projects going on, probably some that you know about and some that you don't. But I'm going to run down just a quick list of the things that are going on. I think you'll be surprised. The Point Breeze houses on Beach Boulevard, y'all probably seen that development down there. Phase 2 has been approved, and they'll be building houses in Phase 2. Phase 1 is complete. Also, The Beach Vista Apartments, which are on Pine Grove, are proceeding. We just issued a permit a month ago to Beauvoir Manor Apartments. That was for $8.5 million in improvements that they're doing to the inside and outside of that development. The convenience store at the corner of Beach Boulevard and DeBees, what's happened there is that, they started on it and then they stopped. What's happened is that they've sold all the rubble that's going to be generated by the curb and gutter and the asphalt that's in there to a recycling company. And if you've noticed, there's a front end loader down there now that's going to be pushing up the rest of that asphalt and concrete that's in there. And once that's done, the company will come in and haul all of that away so that that can be recycled. There's going to build the convenience store there will be at the corner of the service road at DeBees and Highway 90. And then right behind that, they're going to be building some townhomes there that we're still looking at the Development Review Committee. Classy Chassis Car Wash, someone mentioned that. Classy Chassis is moving from the other end of Pass Road down to here. They're working on that project right now. The new Keesler Federal Credit Union building that's going to be built next to the existing building on Pass Road, we're waiting on them to provide us with the site plan on that. It has not gone to DRC yet, so we're waiting for that to happen. The Zaxby's restaurant is already under construction on Pass Road where the old El Rancho location was. And El Rancho is actually looking at the former McDonald's hamburger place that was outside the west gate of Keesler down at the other end. So we're hoping that'll work out. If you know where Gateway is, which is just east of DeBees Road, you probably saw that a zoning change was approved there to allow a hotel, a retail center, and condos to go in there. That's 4 acres that the gentleman owns, and we're waiting on them to come forward with the site plan for that so that we can review it. The former Biloxi hotel is down by the IHOP on the road that goes back to Walmart. If you've been through there lately, you've noticed that they're cleaning that out. That's been sold to another owner. They're going to gut the inside of those, which they're doing right now, and they're going to redo the inside and give the outside a facelift. They've also talked about adding another building and possibly a restaurant up near Highway 90 in front of that. So some life is beginning to come back into this area again. The former Hooters location on Highway 90 is going to become an Azteca Latino restaurant, and the architectural plans are finished on those. We're waiting on them to submit them to us so that we can review those, but it's going to be really nice. It'll have a nice courtyard on the outside and a lot of nice landscape. The Seaside Oaks Townhomes, which is, if you know where Rodenberg is, just east of Rodenberg, there's the White Pillars and then the Holiday Inn Express and then the Jubilee. Just on the east side of the Jubilee, there's going to be 38 homes built in there. It's going to be a little community. Excuse me. Questions about the Hobby Lobby building? They have 2 tenants to go into the Hobby Lobby building and also a tenant to go into the former Joann's Fabrics building. They won't let us release the names of them right now. We're waiting on the developer to give us the approval so that they can be announced, but that'll be coming soon. Also, on Rue Palafox, there's a townhouse development in there, apartment development in there. They're actually going to be tearing down 2 of those buildings that are in bad shape and rebuilding townhomes in there. I think they're like 62 units. So that's going to be a great facelift for that area. The trampoline park at the mall, I understand, is doing great. You know, one of the things that we had to do to help make our mall viable again is not only to have shopping, but, we've talked about it with Terry Powell, the manager, many times, that people don't like to just shop anymore. They like to shop, they like to eat, and they like to be entertained. And so the movie theater is doing very well, and the trampoline park is doing very well. So that's added a lot of traffic to the mall. A new apartment complex that the council just approved yesterday that'll be going in next to the Ocean Club condos. It'll be between the Ocean Club and the cemetery on Highway 90. There'll be 144 units there. It'll be long-term rental, not short-term rental. And I'm very familiar with this developer. He's done a lot of developments in the Hattiesburg area, and he's wanting to move down here and do some as well. You probably saw that the former Margaritaville site has been sold. It's been sold to a major developer from Las Vegas, and he's going to be presenting plans to us as to what they want to do with that. If you're familiar with Cat's Meow or Dick's Last Resort, those are two of the businesses that he owns, and he's going to be coming back. He's also in negotiations to buy the yacht club. So I think that may happen later this year. The former e-fitness property, in 2006, the City Council approved a very large, what used to be called a PUD development, planned urban development, to go around to e-fitness. It was going to be done in multiple phases. And phase one was done, and then the previous owners were not able to do phase two. That property has been acquired, and the new owner is going to go back and complete all of the phases that were approved in 2006. So you'll see some housing around there and some other things go in. Single-family housing is just off the chart right now. Like I said before, we have people moving here from everywhere in the country that's moving down here. And I talk to a lot of them. I'll see them in a restaurant or somewhere and ask them, you know, what brought you here? And they said, well, you know, we never realized that Mississippi looked like this. You know, we always thought about cow pastures and rednecks and those kind of things, you know. And we got down here and we saw this beautiful beach and just realized that we needed to get out of these places where the taxes are off the chart and all of these fees that you have to pay, you know, we can't afford anymore. So single-family residential is doing good. Townhomes are doing good. Apartments. Also, we're beginning to get condos back again. I don't know if any of you that were here before Hurricane Katrina, but before Katrina, we had 26 high-rise condominium developments that had been approved for construction. And then when Katrina hit, it just wiped all of that out. So we've had to go back and overcome a lot of challenges to keep development going. You know, we had the economic downturn in 2009 and then the oil spill and all of these other things that we keep having to overcome to keep development coming to Biloxi. Right now, on our list, we have 8 hotels that are proposed. We have 10 restaurants that are proposed, three car washes, 2 convenience stores. You've probably seen the Bella downtown, the old Wells Fargo building. If you haven't been down there, you need to go take a look at it. It's been converted over into apartments. Very, very nice. They just completely redid everything. It also has a small restaurant that's going to be inside called the Brew Paddle. The BART building downtown, the work stopped on the BART building for a while. The owner, I'm advised, it's taken them this long waiting on structural steel to come in. They've had a problem getting structural steel in, but it is in the country now, and as soon as that steel is in and they get it in place, then you'll see that crank back up again. Gaming revenues are doing very well. Sales tax revenues, we're setting records on sales tax revenues. We've had 28 months in a row of over $1 million in sales tax revenues each month. That's never happened in the history of Biloxi. We're actually averaging $1.22 million a month. And for the month of July, which is the last check that we received from the Department of Revenue, it was $1.4 million. That in itself is a record. We've never had $1.4 million in sales tax revenues for 1 month. Our department has gone through a lot of changes. Just very briefly, in the past 14 months, Ed Chamber retired after 32 years. Denise King retired after 43 years. Tim Sapola retired after 28 years. Bill Raymond, the historic administrator, retired after 28 years. Yvette Mulcahy, who was at the Visitor Center, retired after 36 years. And Eric Nolan, who is our city arborist, left and went to Harrison County as our zoning administrator. And we have not missed a beat. We always try to promote from within, We had people move up and take over those positions on all of them except for the city arborist. And we had to go outside to find someone that had that expertise. And I think we hit a home run with the guy that we hired. He's very, very knowledgeable and very hardworking. But his name is Zach Harris. In case any of you need to call, you can call our department, and he can answer any of your questions. And with that, I think that covers everything.
You had a few questions. There's a lady in the back. You had a question.
I just wanted to know if there was a place, if there had been an environmental impact study done, or if there was any study done about what it would do to the local wildlife. You're removing 21 trees from phase 1. Has anything been done in regards to what's happening with phase 1?
Okay, that project is already approved. We did not require an environmental impact. The trees were the main things that were part of our ordinance to oversee. I'm not sure if the college did an environmental impact study or not.
How many of the trees were live oak? Someone asked that, and I don't think there was ever.
I don't remember exactly, but there were a number of them that were live oaks, yes.
Why were they allowed to be cut down?
Well, as part of development, our ordinance was written to find the balance between development and tree preservation. And so the ordinance was written that if you're going to take trees down, and sometimes trees have to be taken down, that you have to pay for it one way or another. You either replant trees on the site or you pay into the mitigation bank. And this money that goes into the mitigation bank, which I think we've got maybe $30,000 in there now, maybe a little bit more than that. The money that goes into the mitigation bank, our arborist works with the tree committee to determine places where those trees can be planted throughout the city, like in a park or a cemetery or down streetscape or whatever. And then what we do is once a decision has been made about where they need to go, then the mayor presents that to the city council, and the city council votes to release those funds to pay for however many trees are going to be planted. Anything else? Yes, sir?
I know the Fernwood property's for sale. Is there a deal on the table? They located a buyer for it? You told me to know about all the details on it. Since it's got to be handled a certain way, but is that?
The old Fernwood School property?
I was informed the retainer clause is expired, it's for sale.
I've been out of the school business for over a decade. They don't check with me on anything anymore.
We've had no communication with anybody about that property. No one has approached the city about what they can do on that property or brought us a site plan or anything. So.
You just can't stick a sign on it. It has to go, according to state law, it has to go through a certain bid process.
Councilman Tisdale would know more about that than me.
Not that I'm aware of. If you're interested in the property, you just approach your school board, or they hire a realtor to handle the matter for you. Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Thank you. You could find the school board of trustees at biloxischools.net. I don't know if there's any contact information for them, but you could also call the school district office, ask to speak to the superintendent or the business manager. They might be able to tell you something about that Fernwood property. I don't know. Yes, Rita.
I thought that property had to go back and switch it if it wasn't used for
No, there was a small section of that property on the Gulfport side of DeBees that's probably as big as this room, and I think that was cured a number of years ago. And then there are things you can do to cure that retainer or whatever they call it.
And you mentioned something about something on Pine Road. I sort of breezed over that pretty fast.
The apartment complex that's being built.
Where is that?
It's right off of Highway 90. They built one on the...
No.
It's right up near the road.
Remember where Mr. Zhang built those 36 units right behind Surf Style? There's 36. They were going to be apartments, and then he came at the last minute and asked for a conditional use to make them a short-term rental complex. All right, and my colleagues approved that. I did not vote for that.
To the west, across the street, same developer building a development of 60 short-term rentals at that location. So that's what Mr. Creel was talking about. No, that's generally referred to as the Schuler property. No, I hadn't heard any. I don't think anything's happening there. Nothing. Still an open field. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about the Biloxi property. I know you can't tell us what's going in, but is it going to be something that?
Look at him. I have no idea.
Is it going to? Because I know one time in the Hancock building, they were going to.
Blood plasma center?
Blood donation.
Yeah, we told him no. When he came forward with the blood plasma center, I convinced him that that's like putting up a dead-end sign into his shopping center, and he agreed. So no, it will not be a blood plasma center. It will be retail. All three places will be retail, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions of Mr. Creel before I let him skulk out? Thank you, Jerry. Okay, let's see. Walt Rohde. Walt is an employee of the city of Biloxi, and he deals with all the contractors. I think this is accurate. He deals with all the contractors that are doing all the infrastructure work related to Hurricane Katrina. And that portion of the infrastructure work now in Ward 5, actually between Veterans Avenue and DeBees Road along Highway 90, is what he's going to share with you about where they are. This could be a 2-minute presentation, or it could be a 22-minute presentation. Thanks, Walt.
Thank you, Councilman. Just to open up, I've got a couple of display posters over there showing the limits of the projects that Councilman Tisdale mentioned, the BEA 1, 2, and 3 project over here on my right. That stands for Beauvoir, and it's 3 phases because it was designed by 3 different engineering firms, but it's one contractor, Nikkei's Brothers Construction Company. Currently, I've got lots of notes on this, so let me find my most current and relevant notes related to this. Currently, that project, the BEA 1, 2, and 3, as Councilman Tisdale mentioned, is between DeBees Road and Veterans. Project BEA 1, which is DeBees Road to Edgewater Mall, the contractor hasn't worked in that area yet, but we're expecting him to work by the end of this year into that area or the first of next year. He has been heavily focused on the areas identified as BEA 2 and BEA 3, which is from Edgewater Mall to Brady's Drive and from Brady's Drive to Big Play Veterans Avenue. There's been a big push by our mayor to finish up some work in an adjacent project area on the east side of Biloxi called St. Michael's 1 and 2, which is on the far limits of the east side of Biloxi. That's probably why you have not seen as much activity along the highway as what we had earlier in the year. But as we stand today, the contractor is primarily, for the next few weeks, preparing to get the areas dressed up, cleaned, weed-eated, mowed, along with the help of Public Works in the county, in time for cruising the coast. The contractor is getting to put down temporary asphalt on all the side roads that intersect with Highway 90 that he's come across with water and sewer. So Edgewater Drive, Maison d'Orleans, they're basically making their way from west to east, and they should have it all complete here within the next week or two, including the service road on the south side of Highway 90 near Treasure Bay, temporary asphalt. They've got a lot of the sewer and water mains in, as we spoke about previously, in the areas BA 2 and 3. However, the old systems are still on. We have not tied in the new water and sewer yet. That will be a little while. So we're still on the old water and sewer systems, but all the new water and sewer mains have been installed. We've got a subcontractor out there called Miller Construction Company. They're continuing to work on Brady Drive. As I mentioned, Nikkei's is continuing with the sewer main south of Highway 90 near Treasure Bay and preparing that service road by the new west boat launch ramp for temporary asphalt. And we're trying to get all the side roads asphalted in time for cruising the coast, make it a little bit of a smoother ride. That project was originally estimated for a very long time after some discussions within the city and amongst the design engineers. primarily because we're so close to the highway and we have very deep sewer that we thought we were going to have to do a lot of open cut trenching. That's like digging holes in your backyard, and you're going very, very deep, and you're trying to prevent that from collapsing. Well, one of the things the city decided to do once we started construction was we have so much vegetation and signage and businesses down there. The city elected to spend some of our funds to help, instead of open cut trench, we do what we call jack and bore, and that's to minimize the construction time, try to minimize the impacts to a lot of these businesses and hopefully some of the residents. And that's where you basically dig a pit on either side and you dig underneath all the obstructions as opposed to just cutting through them. It costs a little bit more, but it saves us some time. Currently, the contract is scheduled to be complete in July 2025, but the contractor's at least 6 months ahead. I'd be surprised if it extends past 2024. He's completed about 11.8 to 13 million of this $33 million project. A lot of the funds will go more quickly next year, obviously 2024. And I think other than that, as it relates to Beauvoir, I have some past funding amounts and dates of when all this infrastructure program started. I won't speak to that unless directly asked. And the only reason I bring it up is a lot of people talk about, well, this thing's been going on forever. Just as a quick FYI, even though Hurricane Katrina hit in August 2005, the city received its initial funding for 16 different project areas, which is on the other board over there. In March and June of 2008, the funding was revised and increased by FEMA in the first quarter of 2011. And that's when the first of the projects actually started construction in 2011. So it has been a while since Hurricane Katrina, but to start construction, we had to get our funding in place from FEMA, and that's where we are as of today. So I'll open the floor up to any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I live on Oak Place.
Yes, ma'am.
And they are there today fixing that. They fixed the hotel. Who's responsible, and the city council talked to him, they came in and cleaned up Oak. Hallelujah. There's a few of us left. Who cleans the spot from Highway 90 to where Oakmont starts? Isn't that the city property?
So you've got several, that's a good question, and it comes up often. So Highway 90, of course, belongs to the Department of Transportation. They've got their right-of-way. But typically, it's a shared responsibility between the county, Mississippi DOT, and the city. The DOT has their right-of-way, and it's a pretty wide right-of-way, and then we got the sidewalks there, and that belongs a little bit to the county. Then, of course, the city has its utility easements beyond that.
Well, it looks terrible. And with cruising coming in, we've got Oakmont clean.
Yes.
Can we get that clean before cruising?
Well, that, we just met with that contractor and the mayor on Tuesday morning. We've been meeting with that contractor and the mayor every Friday morning for about the past 3 or 4 for this very reason. One, he wanted to get some roads finished up in the east side of Biloxi, and also primarily is cruising's coming up. He wants that contractor to focus on cleaning up from Edgewater Mall all the way down to Big Play, wherever he's touched. So he. Oh, yes. Yeah, and he brings it up. He receives the calls from you, and the calls come to me, and from me to the contractor. But it's high on the mayor's radar, and now it's high on the contractor's radar.
Well, there's a few of us left.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Jan, you said it looked good?
It looks great.
Good. Take a picture, please. Thank you.
Were there any other questions related to this or the infrastructure program as a whole? All right, here none. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walt. Stalwart souls, still here. All right. I have Tom Goldsworthy and Granver Everett with the police department. They'll cover 3 topics: cruising the coast, the traffic plan. It's pretty much the same that comes up at this time of the year with cruising just around the corner. speeding in neighborhoods, and the Citizens Police Academy, which is a program you might be interested in the future.
Hey, how we doing? Alrighty, so I am Captain Everett. I'm the events coordinator, the public information officer, and the traffic supervisor for the Biloxi Police Department. So for you that I've met with or been here before and you were here, the traffic plan for the most part will remain the same. There are a couple things that we are doing differently. So we had the great spring break debacle, and then we had scraping the coast, and now we're here to cruising. So one of the things that spring break forced us to do was kind of reevaluate what it is that we're trying to do or what we're trying to accomplish as a city for events. A lot of you know that even though we are the police, there's not a lot of control over events that we have. We get people that plan events, whether they are big, whether they are small, and we're told to manage those events. So a lot of times there's three key factors with events that kind of bog us down a little bit. One's always manpower. Two is always going to be the need to have some type of mechanism in place to where we can address these events. And then the third one is going to be the issue of enforcement, the actual enforcement of the law. And so I present those three things to you to kind of outline the challenges that we face as law enforcement. So if we have a lack of law enforcement officers, we have a lack of a mechanism in place to manage the events, that directly impacts how we actually enforce things when we're dealing with these events. And so our city attorney, Mr. Abad, mentioned that this is the time for people to come out if you're not necessarily against the events, which we aren't against the events, but want your voice heard, want better mechanisms in place to give us, the law enforcement, the opportunity to control, or I say control, manage these events, then come to the city council meetings and speak on why it's important to have such ordinances in place. We don't have that stuff. We can't control it. I'll give you an example this weekend. None of this will impact you, but many of you may not know, Saturday alone, we have 5 different events in the city of Biloxi that the police have to try to maintain. What that means is I got to take officers that are off and put them in 5 different locations and manage them as best as we can. That's still while maintaining our normal calls for service, anything else that we're doing day to day as far as the public safety needs of the city of Biloxi. So I encourage you to come out. Please, voice your opinions, voice your concerns, but how we make this better moving forward is having an ordinance in place to kind of give us an opportunity to manage these events moving forward. Now, to address the lack of officers, if any of you are out for scraping the coast, you may have seen that we have visitors in the city that helped us in the form of the Department of Public Safety. We had Mississippi Highway Patrol, and we had their commercial enforcement division. Those 2 agencies was here helping us in Harrison County, which made a huge difference. One of the things that allowed us to do was we were able to do a little bit more enforcement on Highway 90 and in the neighborhoods. But most importantly, what we didn't deal with as law enforcement is running back and forth, from one end of the city to the next with fight calls or disorderly subjects or traffic crashes. The amount of crime went down tremendously. Some of you may not know, we traditionally hear about spring break. Years past, our worst event has been scraping the coast as far as crime-wise. This particular year, with the way we ran it and were able to operate it with additional manpower, we cut that. I don't know the percentages, but it was more than half. We cut that, and we're very proud of that, and that gave us kind of a footprint to kind of start looking forward to these other events, which brings us to Cruising the Coast. The biggest change for Cruising the Coast is we're adding more officers. We're getting more input or more assistance from the state of Mississippi, so we have, again, our friends with the Highway Patrol, their Commercial Enforcement Division, but we're also getting the Department of Marine Resources as well. That's just another added advantage to us having as far as law enforcers in Mississippi for this event. We're also shrinking the actual event area. Years past, we've gone from DeBees Road all the way east back to Porter Avenue, where we utilize the service drive a little bit. But this year, we're not doing that. The event area starts at Rodenberg Avenue and it'll flow west here to DeBees Road. That allows us to pull any resources that we had to the east. Now we can put those resources in the west. In years past, we've had our neighborhood details. Now we can actually dedicate more manpower and more resources to our neighborhoods than we have in these events. Now, granted, if somebody's beating me up on Highway 90, people are going to come help me. So there may be a time where you're not going to see an officer in your neighborhood or see a car that's parked and nobody's there. The reason being something else happened, and those officers still have to respond. So, but for the most part, we're looking to put more people in an event area that gives us more coverage. It increases our response time, and should there be a need for us to get any type of medical assistance or anything else from first responders, we can do that. The other thing that's kind of unique that we're going to do this event is we normally go to an emergency lane at some point, and we let traffic kind of dictate when that happens. One of the things for spring break that I did wrong is I waited a little bit too late to enact, well, I never did really enact the emergency lane. If you were on Highway 90, you saw the traffic was moving. The problem was we had all the pedestrians on the north side of the road spilling into the roadway. So we're gonna manage that, and we're gonna address that a little bit differently, but this time we're gonna utilize the emergency lane. We did it for scraping the coast, and again, it worked out wonderfully. So those are little things that we've learned along the way from spring break to now. So the biggest concern that I know some of you may have as well is that shortcut at the Coliseum. The reason that shortcut isn't going to be open again, the Coliseum kind of gives us the all or nothing. We will open that gate for you, but we need officers to man all of our gates. If I'm sitting here with a shortage of officers, I really can't dedicate more resources to the Coliseum. But what we are doing, as long as you have your passes that Councilman Tisdale has issued out or will be issuing out, we're going to do our best to get you into your homes when you come by. Just make sure you have that placard in your vehicle visible, or for some reason if you lose it, have something, a driver's license that shows your address, some type of mail or anything that kind of ties you to that area, and we'll get you to your homes. So that's kind of the skinny, or what we're looking to do here for for cruising the coast. Now, with that being said, can you address, I love to talk to you, but give me any concerns that you have as far as the police department go for this event, and let's start trying to find a plan to deal with those. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Before you leave.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if this is for you, but when the new spring break ordinance gets approved.
Okay.
If it's get approved before cruising the coast, I mean, I don't know what all is in the ordinances, pretty lengthy and everything.
Right.
But is cruising the coast, are there things that cruising the coast needs to do before this happens October 1st that they're going to be able to abide by?
So,
No, I can answer that. No, but I think there's a provision in what we're going to vote on this Tuesday that said it basically becomes effective after a particular date or so many months out, simply because there's not going to be time for the folks who are cruising the coast to comply with these regulations when they're coming out, if they're approved a couple of weeks before this event. So that they won't be impacted. I think the spring break event and scraping the coast event, anything that happens after about February or March will be impacted by whatever changes occur with these revisions to the ordinances. Okay?
The one thing, I mean, I know it's great, Biloxi has so many wonderful things to bring people to church. And I know the traffic is a problem and affects a lot of people. That is an issue, but the violence and just the rowdiness and everything, we've got to do something about that. And I don't know what it is, but that's got to stop, because that is going to ruin our city and our reputation.
And that's exactly why we're revising these ordinances. We had one ordinance in place, and it dealt with parades. There was nothing else that dealt with these special events, which over the years have grown. So this is a big step forward. You do have an opportunity. If you want to go to my website Thursday afternoon, I'll be
linking whatever's on the council agenda to my website. If you get my weekly e-blast, there's always a section on the DRC agenda when they meet, the Planning Commission agenda, and all the council meetings. But before we leave this particular topic, those of you who get neighborhood passes, I know there are a few of you in here. They're printed. I will get them to you as I always get them to you. These are for neighborhoods that are on Highway 90 between Edgewater Mall and Beauvoir Road. They're the most heavily impacted by all these events. So I'll get those to you, not this week, but probably sometime next week. Okay? Yes, Rita.
One question about, you were saying during Cruising the Coast that you're shrinking the area where all the people are going to meet. My problem is with spring break, they need to be, there's just too many people right there by search style, and how many shootings did we have? Even had a person murdered in the hotel.
Yes, ma'am. So, and I agree with you 100% with that. Right. So when we look at spring break versus scraping the coast or cruising the coast, so even though they bring a ton of people, they're kind of different events. With scraping and cruising, we know that people want to get out there and they want to drive. They want to drive back and forth. Whereas with spring break, we see more pedestrian traffic. More people are on foot. More people want to hang out. And the fact of the matter is, the areas that you see the majority of the people, those are the properties that are allowing people to just kind of congregate. Just they let them pile up there, and there's nothing we can do about it because it's private property. Now, one of the provisions in the ordinance, once it's approved, that gives us the ability to kind of identify a nuisance area. Once an area becomes a nuisance, that gives us a little bit different means of addressing that nuisance. We can actually shut that particular area down and start removing or requesting or demanding that people leave the area, and that gives us a little bit of an advantage when it comes to managing those particular areas. But that's what's kind of tying our hands a little bit in the years past, or even events earlier this year, is you get that problem area. It's a nuisance. We know it's a nuisance, but because it's private property, if the property owner won't give us the ability or the permission to kind of shut it down, our hands are tied.
And see, those property owners, they're not us.
Correct.
They are, people up there trying to make a profit. There's like too many food vendors in that big lot.
Yes.
There's way too many people there. And then they used to come in our neighborhood before you had police there.
Yes, sir.
And they would go, the one lady was in my driveway changing clothes and stuff. When you don't have your cars in your driveway, they'll pull right up in your driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
When he says shrinking down the area, I think you misunderstood part. When he says shrinking down the area, what he's talking about is we had officers posted all the way into East Biloxi, because when we do the traffic plans, you have to have those intersections so you can keep moving those cars. But what he's doing is he's bringing all that manpower that is rarely used except for extreme times into that shrunk area where you're talking about all the issues are. So there's more officers to deal with those issues right away and shut that down. That's what he's talking about on shrinking the area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we don't need no more people up there.
Oh, no,
They
I understand.
come here from the beach, why aren't they on the beach?
Well,
We're on the other side.
that gets us into another another topic. But essentially, in order to have those events on the beach, they need permits. Those permits go through Sand Beach Authority, not the city of Biloxi. And of course, if they say no, we're not going to tell anybody no, that they can't be essentially driving on Highway 90. And then property owners north of 90 is not telling anybody no, you can't be on my property. So whatever event it is, that's why you're going to see that group of people or those large crowds in those areas, whether it's scraping, cruising, spring break, whatever the case may be. They're all, like all event takers, they know which lots they can go to, or event participants. And those are the normals for every event.
Can they make some kind of ordinance or something there about all those food vendors in one spot?
That's a good question. Actually, the ordinance addresses that. Not only will it address just the vendors in one spot, the vendors that are able to get to that particular area, they're going to have to be facing away from Highway 90 now. What that means is instead of having your serving window or service window facing Highway 90 and those crowds spilling out onto the sidewalk and into Highway 90, everything's going to have to be north of Highway 90. There's so many feet or yards. They're going to have to be from the roadway, property lines, sidewalks, etc. So that's going to give us a little bit of better opportunity to manage that as well. Yes. Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay, so moving right along to the traffic concerns. I'm kind of newer to the complaints in your area as far as the traffic concerns. I think the most recent one I heard was a couple weeks ago on Big Lake Road. So is there anyone here that wants to address anything speeding related or any traffic concerns in your neighborhoods? Okay, yes, sir.
I'm extended from Big Lake Road over
Okay. Okay, and what seems to be?
I think Paul and the influence already did an excellent job of getting the stop signs installed on Big Lake and by Linwood Drive.
Yes, sir.
There's no way you can act in the deterrent. The only solution would be, you could maybe put more patrol down there, possibly motorcycles, or, in the evening or in the morning when people go to school. Or
During rush hour.
Rush hour.
In the morning and the afternoon.
I understand, manpower shortage, that you face and all that.
Yes, sir.
Help would be good.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
Atkinson Road is pretty insane. I'm kind of speaking on my in-laws who live on Atkinson Road directly. They've had 2 cars flip over in front of their house just this year alone. The average speed, the speed limit on that road is 25. I'm sure you've driven down it. The average speed most people drive on that road is probably 45 or more. I don't know if there's anything that the police department can do, but we wanted to bring that up that, hey, maybe the traffic engineering department might do something with speed bumps or some kind of traffic calming devices, but.
There's 2 schools, there's a park, there's base housing, there's elderly, there's also 2 nursing homes there, and it's nearly impossible sometimes to cross if you just want to go through the stop sign. When I grew up there, I was born and raised there.
Yes, ma'am.
We've lost plenty of pets, plenty of people on that road.
Okay. Is it a particular time of the day that you think? All day?
The cars that flipped in front of my parents, they live in the heart of Atkinson. It was like at midnight. One was drunk driving, stolen car, or they were on the road or something.
I think most of that, I live right there at that intersection. I think most of the congestion you have on Atkinson is because there's no turning lane going north of Prosperity. It used to be an Exxon station. I don't know what they call it now. There's no turning lane. It's bottleneck there.
You're right.
There's nothing you can do about it until they redo the intersection. But Atkinson is just about as worse as all that.
I wish the police department did more speed tickets on Pass Road and also on Highway 90. I think it would slow things down and possibly keep us from having so many wrecks and also possibly lower insurance premiums.
So I could talk a little bit about our plans to doing that anyway. So was it last week, week before last, I've met with my boss, and one of the things we're doing is trying to actually get more people into our traffic unit. A lot of the times what you will most often see our traffic unit out doing is doing funeral escorts. They are very important. However, at the same time, it takes our entire traffic unit to do that, and then our patrol division, they're out answering calls. So if we can get more bodies into traffic, which we're actively working on doing, then we can kind of split our resources a little bit, and we can actually we can continue the service of doing our escorts when they're needed, but we can still enforce traffic at the same time throughout the city. And I think that's going to have a larger impact, and even with beefing up our numbers, that's where we get more patrol officers, and it gives them more opportunities to be proactive. And those officers themselves, whether it's day or night, they can go out, run radar, and enforce any traffic violations that they come across as well. So, yes, ma'am.
What is the negative about speed bumps?
Honestly, I can't answer that question. I'm not really sure. I really don't see a negative. It depends on where it is. And
Let me not answer this question for you.
Go right ahead.
So we have speed tables. We have one at Mercury Lane, and it sort of worked and sort of doesn't.
because it didn't resolve the issue. And basically, all of these issues we've talked about, is Russell said it really without saying it. These are all these roads, Atkinson, Old Bay, they're all shortcuts to avoid the heavily trafficked intersection at Pops Ferry and Pass Road. Everybody's looking for a shortcut. I took Old Bay when I was in high school. I'm sure you did too, to beat the lights or whatever. But with speed bumps, there's some liability that attaches to the city. There's also first responder concerns when every minute counts, those kinds of things. The best person to have answered that question was a city attorney that was sitting behind you, but he already left, okay? But there's, and there are a lot of neighborhoods that are requesting speed bumps, a lot of them, or speed tables, so. Right. No, I understand. I understand. And I know you, Sherry, and I know you don't care. I know that. But the thing is, this is not just a concern here in this ward in West Biloxi. This is a concern throughout the city. And I was serious when I said, if you know any sworn law enforcement officers that are looking for employment, have them see these guys, have them see Chief Miller. Okay. Right. I'll share one story with you. Old Bay Road, this was 9 years ago. I was a new councilman. I asked Chief Miller, would you start ticketing people that are speeding? If you know Chief Miller, he's a class act. He said, sir, do you really want to do that? I said, yes. We're going to slow those speeders down. That was before they had a four-way stop there in the middle of that stretch of Old Bay. So anyway, a week went by, and I saw him pulling over people. And I asked him, I said, how many did you ticket? He said, we wrote 26 tickets that day. I said, well, good, that'll slow them down. He said, 23 of them were to your neighbors in your neighborhood, and you're going to hear from them. And I heard from 3 of them. Now, they were doing 40 on a road that's always been 25. And what can I tell them? Were you doing what you were supposed to do? Because if you were, you wouldn't have gotten a ticket. But anyway, till my ears bled, then I hung up the phone. Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm a UPS driver. I've been here for a lot of years, and from my experience, anytime they put those portable radar things that throw the numbers up on there, as soon as you see that and your speed on there, it's going to make you slow down. Is that a possibility to do on Atkinson Road?
I can answer that. Yep.
Because you're correct, they're trying to get
right.
away with the traffic.
We do that periodically. I've not requested that recently, but if you want to send me an email, if you got a copy of the agenda, you have my email address and my cell phone number. You can text me. Just tell me which street or which section of street. Right. But here's what else you need to know. That's the radar trailer. They'll put it up there. Not always, but usually it'll be there for 3 or 4 days typically. And then it'll disappear. And about a week later, so as you know, they'll be there writing tickets. So if you get a ticket, if you're in the room and you get a ticket, thank this guy, and everybody out here encouraged him to do an outstanding job. Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, I know that works, and it just
right.
It puts that thought in somebody's head, oh, I can get a ticket, I better slow down.
So text me or send me an email, and just let me know about where you give me your address or close by, and I'll get a radar trailer there.
Yes, sir, we still have some.
So I've been here 28 and a half years, and I can tell you 28 and a half years, we had a large traffic unit. We did really well, not just with the funeral escorts, but with traffic enforcement. It takes a combination. The trailer with the radar thing, we actually have a box that people don't know that they're seeing, so when we get complaints, we put the box up, and it's catching cars and letting us know, and they can look real time oh, during these hours, we have people going 20 miles over.
Is that
So
one with the cable run across the road?
that's one of them, and then we, we have one without. So we have a combination of stuff we're using. The last 2 years, and he just took over the traffic section, but the traffic section has gotten bigger. We have more officers. We have 2 accident reconstruction, because they also do that. So they do a combination of stuff. So we are using a combination of all that, but it takes all of that to get people to change their behavior. Just like anybody that has raised kids or taught in school, you have to set certain things to make everybody understand what's acceptable and what's not. And sometimes it sucks when you get that ticket, but like you said, next time you're coming down, you see a police car or one of those trailers, it does change that. It helps people slow down. The biggest problem is those cell phones. People go through neighborhoods with those cell phones not paying attention. So, you know, you have a combination of issues, but you also have a combination of things we're using. So our traffic unit's getting bigger, more patrol officers are running traffic in between calls. We are getting more officers than we had before, but it's still a struggle to get to the numbers that we need, because we may hire 10, and he handled hiring and stuff for a while there too. So you might hire 10, and then after a year, only 2 of them survive going through the whole process. So, all right.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, how are they allowed to get away with this speed bump? The subdivision next to East Bay Miller off of Fox Ferry Road, they got a big speed bump. I used to drive my school bus over. It's a big one.
I don't know.
Because they've had it for a while. They've had it since probably last year.
Right. I don't think there may be 2 speed bumps in Ward 6 or speed tables, I think, maybe.
It's about that big.
Right. And in one, the neighbors wanted it, half the neighbors wanted it, it was put in, and then a year later, most of the neighbors came back and said, we don't like it, take it out.
There actually is one on Atkins, going in the Hill Park.
There is, and I think I don't know if that it must. Yeah, I don't know if it was because it's right there by federal property and an access road. I think it probably was, may not be.
It's a pedestrian crossing right there.
Right. But I think that was a federal initiative. I don't think it was a state initiative. Regardless. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you all.